Hi, my name's Kim J and I'm a visually impaired chef. I'm also a volunteer for RNIB. Now today I'm going to make one of my comfort foods. It's tofu in satay sauce. Very easy to make, no jars needed, no tins of sauce. Now the ingredients you're going to need are a small handful of freshly chopped coriander, 3 cafe lime leaves and 1 lemongrass. Both are easily available in most supermarkets. You're also going to need 3 cloves of garlic, 1 small red onion, some tomato puree and approximately 2 centimetres of root ginger. You're going to need about 12 cashew nuts, 6 basil leaves and a block of silken tofu, not the marinated one, the silken one. You're also going to need black pepper, salt, a tin of coconut milk or coconut cream, some onion salt, some Chinese allspice, some cumin seeds, corn flour and sesame oil. And those are the ingredients you're going to need for this amazing dish. The first thing I'm going to do is prepare the tofu. Now tofu, when you get it out of the pack, it's full of moisture. There'll be some liquid in it, so drain all the liquid away. But if you cut into this tofu now, it's soft, which is great for some recipes. But for this particular recipe, I want that tofu to be hard. So I'm going to compress it by putting the tofu on a plate, putting another plate on top, and on top of that, a small pan full of water. Now this will compress the tofu and make it much firmer and easier to work with for this particular dish. Now I'm going to set it aside and let it sort of compress for at least 30 minutes. And in the meantime, I will start doing the remaining ingredients. I have a small food processor here. If you don't have one, don't worry about it. And I've got my red onion and I'm going to chop this red onion up until it's into little bits. I've blitzed the red onion down and I'm going to set it aside whilst I make the satay paste. Now again, in the food processor, or if you don't have one, just chop everything down as fine as you can. I'm going to put in the cafe lime leaves, the green chilli, the basil. In goes the cashew nuts. And a handful of the coriander. Leave a little bit aside for garnish. Now goes the garlic and the ginger, into which I'm also going to put about 1/4 teaspoon of cumin seeds and about a tablespoon of sesame oil, and I'm going to blitz it all down with a little bit of the tomato puree in it and about 2/3 of the lemongrass. All goes in and blitz. We're now going to prepare the compressed tofu. I've got a mixing bowl here, and into the mixing bowl I'm going to put approximately 5 tablespoons of corn flour. Into that I'm going to put about a teaspoon of the allspice, a teaspoon of the onion salt, 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, and the same 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And I'm now going to mix it all together. Now this is going to be a coating for your tofu. So So I have my compressed tofu here, and I'm going to slice it into chunks approximately 1.5 centimetres to a centimetre thick. Now that I've sliced the tofu up, I'm going to put it into this corn flour mixture, give it a stir and make sure each piece is coated. Now I love tofu, great for vegetarians and vegans. It's high in protein, a good source of amino acids and calcium, and it tastes amazing. On the hob I've got a large pan or a wok if you've got it, and I've put the gas on sort of a medium heat, and I'm going to pour about 2 or 3 tablespoons of the sesame oil. I'm just going to coat the bottom of the pan with it, make sure it's fully coated, and as soon as I can smell the sesame oil or hear it sizzle, I'm going to throw in that remaining lemongrass, which I've shredded into long strips. Now this will help to flavour the tofu, and if you actually smell it, oh gosh, it's so aromatic. You can smell the lemon, it is fabulous. So throw that into the pan, and now I'm going to put the tofu, and we are going to cook that tofu until it's nice and crisp on the sides. I've cooked this tofu until it's brown on all sides. It's, for those with colour, it's a golden brown. Now, when you don't have sight, how do you know when that tofu is ready? Well, if you just kind of gently scrape the top of it, you can feel like a hard layer on it, the crispiness. And that's how you know this tofu is cooked. Now I'm going to take it out onto a plate with a kitchen towel on it to let that oil drain away, and put it aside whilst we make the actual satay sauce. Again on the hob, I've got my wok on a medium to high heat, and I'm going to put about a tablespoon of sesame oil in. And once that oil is heated up, I'm going to add the onions that we've blitzed, and I'm going to cook them down until they're a soft golden brown. I've only cooked these onions for about 5 minutes until they're a golden brown. Now for those of you that don't have sight, I know when they're done, when I stir them, they seem to come together into a sort of semi-firm kind of ball, as if they're attracted to each other. Now I'm going to put another squirt of tomato puree, about 2 tablespoons worth. Give it a stir. And now I'm going to add in the coconut milk. Again, give that a bit of a stir, and already I can smell the aromas of this. Now I'm going to add that paste that we did with the peanuts and the cafe lime and all the spices. Add that in, and I'm going to bring this up to a boil, put it down to a simmer and cook it until it reduces further. I've simmered this sauce now for about 4 or 5 minutes. It depends on you. If you like a thick sauce, reduce it even further. If you like a much sort of looser sauce, this is fine. Now at this stage, I'm going to put in the tofu. Now I've discarded the pieces of lemongrass that was in here, and that's because it was already fried. You don't want the bitterness of the lemongrass to actually permeate this sauce. So put in the tofu and give it a stir. Now at this stage, once it's stirred, check for salt. Don't do it before you put the tofu in, because remember, Your tofu already has some salts in there, so just a little salt check, and if you need some more salt or black pepper, just add it in. For me, a touch more salt. Now for those of you that like a little bit of heat, me included, you could add 1/4 teaspoon of chili powder if you need that heat. And there we go, a lovely tofu satay. No jars, no bottles, all freshly done and very easy. Now you have a recipe for a great dish, but when you're in the kitchen there are certain safety guides and rules that you should adhere to, and which keeps you safe. Now, one of the things that I do before I start cooking is I make sure that I've got shoes on that are sturdy with good grips. I make sure that there's nothing on the floor that I can trip over, and there are no spillages or liquid or condensation on the floor that makes it a bit of a hazard. Now, before cooking, the first thing that you do, as we all know, is wash our hands thoroughly. And especially when you're dealing with raw meat at every stage, wash your hands thoroughly. It stops cross-contamination. It keeps you and your family safe. When you're using the oven and the hob, know your oven and hob really well. Now, I use tactile markings so that I know exactly what temperature to put the oven on and what setting, so that I've not put the grill on when I should be putting the oven on. Now, with the hob, whenever you're sort of putting anything on the hob, make sure the handle is not sticking out. Now, I like to keep the handle at approximately 10 to 12. And the reason for that is it's not near enough to the unit for you to accidentally knock it off. It is not over another hob which may be on, so the handle's getting hot. So this is the safest position. Now, if you're boiling anything, be very, very careful. Don't fill the pan up too much. And if possible, use the boiler alert, which tells you when that liquid is bubbling away and it's hot, and it keeps you safe. If you're not comfortable with the hob and the oven, use the microwave whenever you can. It's a lot safer. And every time you are taking things out of the oven or from the microwave, because remember, plates and dishes get extremely hot in the microwave, use oven gloves. Now, I like to use thermal oven gloves. They're a lot safer. Don't be tempted to use tea towels or anything else. And they literally go to extreme temperatures, so you're very safe with them. Whenever you cut any food in the kitchen, use safe cutting methods. Keep the blade away from your fingers, so set it a couple of millimeters away from your fingers, and that way you're safe all the time. Now, if you're not confident with a knife, you can use appliances like food processors. Make sure you know how they work properly, and keep safe. And if you're still not confident, ask somebody else to do it. It is better to be safe than have an injury. If you have any cuts or you cut yourself whilst you're in the kitchen, put a plaster on it. And if you have a burn, run it under cold water. And if it's bad, you seek medical advice straight away. Whenever you cook meat, always ensure that the meat is thoroughly cooked, because you know, raw meat will give you food poisoning. Now, the best optimum temperature to cook meat is between 66 degrees and 73 degrees. Use a food thermometer if you're not too sure. They do have talking food thermometers, which you can get quite easily. And you store the meat as soon as you can. As soon as it's cooled down, store it straight away in the fridge, and read the advice on storage on the labels.